Welcome, everybody. This is our second LinkedIn Live of 2021. Tribal Impact on Analytica, we put on a social advocacy series for employees who are extremely influential in their own organizations. So today, we're delighted to welcome Timo Elliott, who's the Global Innovation Evangelist at SAP. So a very warm welcome to you, Timo.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. Great. And really, just it would be great to tell the audience who are listening just your journey on how you went from probably social media novice to where you are now, and so that we can all take inspiration from how you made it.
Great. Well, hello everyone. So I'm an innovation evangelist for SAP, so slightly different profile for some of the people that you've had on the previous sessions. So my job is to work with customers on the leading edge of innovation, gather the lessons learned, and then bring that back and communicate it to as many people as possible so we can be all more successful. So basically, my job is to be interesting, and I'm passionate about the power of data to transform the world of work.
Timo, you and I go back a little way, don't we? I'm thinking of Sapphire now when we worked together at the back. Do you remember we did the social program? So
that's right. Yes.
Yeah. I often use you as a bit of an example. So both Timo and I used to work at SAP together, and we did a bit of a social campaign around one of their big events. And I always use you as a bit of an example because you were doing social before it actually became a big thing. I mean, I always remember you being one of the absolute first at this at SAP. Can you remember the tipping point when you started thinking, hold on, what is all this about? Because you were a very early adopter.
So my background is product marketing, competitive marketing, working with industry analysts and so on. And so social media was, from the very beginning, an opportunity to talk to those audiences, keep track of what they were talking about, try and figure out what they wanted to hear more about. I mean, I'm a big believer that you have to start with what's interesting. I talk about ROI equals return on interesting. And there's a lot of discussion in social media about, the systems and the metrics and the analytics, and that's important, but sometimes it gets in the way of what I believe is truly fundamental, which is being interesting and useful and really knowing your customers in the first place. So social media was an extension of that from the very beginning.
I love that. Especially considering your whole thing is around analytics, and it's like, yeah, the analytics are there, but social is actually about the human interaction.
Well, interesting enough, I've spent 30 years in the data and analytics industry, and that's given me a healthy skepticism for metrics. So analytics, don't get me wrong, is really important. But when you start rewarding people based on KPIs, then you often end up with counterproductive behaviors. And unfortunately, I think you can end up seeing that in the social world. One of your previous guests surprised me by saying that he suggested that you give a KPI to people in your organization to force them to write blogs. Honestly, I think that's a spectacularly bad idea, personally. I believe that when you read a blog piece or social media or even a tweet, you can tell one of three things. Either the person really wanted to write that because they were interested and passionate and wanted to share something, or they have been forced to do it, the opposite extreme, or in the middle, somebody who's trying to click all the metrics. They've carefully written the title to hit the SEO and get as many retweets as possible, and they're checking it and they're figuring out what time to write that tweet. And I think the last case where the case where people are just being forced to do it, that's clearly bad. The first case, if you've got somebody who's passionate about it, I think that's sort of almost a guarantee that it's interesting content for at least some group of people. And the middle, though, I think is dangerous because you can end up with astroturf, spam, marketing mush, just oceans of clickbait. And we've seen this on social media in general, is that if you just try and feed the machine, you end up with something that there's no there. It's what I sometimes call just marketing, as in, no, I want real content, not just marketing. So I think the right combination is the first two. So you have to have somebody who's passionate about something, who really has something interesting to say. Then you combine it with the metrics. Those two together work well. but
So
separately.
how did you start, Timo, like understanding how to sort of connect your passion to social media? Was it a natural thing? Like how long did it take you to feel like you're investing good time in social media, that it was paying off for you?
So, and I sometimes get asked this because I love my job. Other people seem to like the idea of doing my job. So how do you become a technology evangelist? I actually wrote a blog post on this. It's one of the highest, talking about social media, is one of the highest blogs on my website, is how to become a technology evangelist. And one of the ways you do it is by doing it slowly. You can't get hired as an evangelist to do this kind of job full time. You have to do it first, and then eventually, if a company sees that they're getting some benefit out of it, then they'll let you do more and more of it. And that's exactly what happened to me. I slowly spent more time of my spare time on social media and blogging and so on. And then eventually, and it took a decade, I was allowed to do that full time.
It took a decade. It might be a bit quicker for those that are watching. Hi,
but it wasn't an explicit goal. It was just another way of putting it is I failed at everything else, so I ended up doing social media evangelism.
I don't think that, but I think your journey is fascinating. And also, if anybody's watching on LinkedIn Live, hello. It takes a few minutes for this thing to warm up. Hi, Keith and Raghu. If you have a question for Timo, pop it in there because we can put it to him.
And Keith already makes a great point about authenticity is very important in social media. Once you can fake that, you've got it made.
Is that what it is?
I love that. Fake authenticity is the title.
Feed the machine, marketing mush. I'm just hearing it all now. I love that though, and your journey, I think, is one that what you've hit on there, Timo, is something I haven't been able to explain before, which is stop trying to be someone. If you just let go of all that baggage of how many times you're supposed to tweet and what's supposed to be in there, and actually, if you just let go of all of that and just be you, you'll be really surprised how many people want to be part of that conversation, and then you start to formulate your own area, your own specialism, and people follow you for that, and then you become an evangelist and in its own right, and look where that takes you. You get a job out of it. It's brilliant. So,
and of course, well, then the triangulation is, of course, you have to talk about what you find interesting, but it has to be what other people find interesting too, right? So especially, I work for an organization that pays me to help customers be more successful in ways that, a win-win, hopefully. And so a big part of what I do is try and make sure that I am spending lots of time with customers. Now, so I used to, just to give you an idea of what it would look like. So most of the time I would be, so I'm French, by the way, I'm based in Paris. And most of the time this would be me on stage. I used to go to 40 or 50 conferences a year doing keynote presentations, talking about how the latest technologies can lead to win-win-win opportunities where we can improve customer outcomes and increase efficiency and help make the world a better place, all at the same time.
I know. I'm buying. Where do I buy?
It's all about data transforming everything we do. So I used to do a lot of that. But of course, they canceled all the conferences, or rather, they put them all online. So a big part of my job, though, remains working with doing online presentations. The downside is I don't get to get coffee with people in the breaks, and I don't get to have those conversations about, so, what are your concerns? What are you working on? What are the areas that we can potentially help you with going forward? So that's one of the challenges I have right now, is you have to engage to be engaging. How do you engage with people really in a virtual world? It's a little bit harder than it used to be.
So what can I just ask? Sorry, Sarah. What's your strategy, Timo, like day to day on LinkedIn and Twitter? Do you have a routine? Do you just post when you feel like posting? It would just be great to hear your approach to it.
So yes, strategy is a very big word. So yes, I don't really have a strategy. I probably should have a strategy. I don't approach it in a quantitative way in any aspect. I do approach it from a qualitative point of view, that I'm constantly trying to figure out what is interesting. Interesting is just a great term. It can be useful, it can be funny, it can be unusual. again, I believe there's the sea of marketing mush. I mean, I don't know about you, but do you find a lot of B2B technology marketing interesting?
Oh no, honestly, and over the last 12 months as well, given this lockdown, there's just been a whole overload of content that just is not relevant. And I can say that, right, because I work in marketing. So, hi Dave, by the way, you've joined us as well. I'm sure you've got questions. So, yeah, go on.
So I'm really spending a lot of time. So my strategy, if anything, is to try and figure out what the potential audience finds interesting, and a big chunk of that is other people being successful. I mean, the one thing I spend a lot of time on is finding those examples of organizations that are doing something new. Because let's face it, everybody would like to innovate, but it's a lot harder than we make it sound. And so stories about what other people have done, ideally what problems they ran into and how they overcame those problems, that is something that people are fundamentally interested in. They're certainly a lot more interested in that than they are interested in hearing about my company's products or how great we are or anything like that. So that's how I spend my time. Is that a strategy? I'm not sure.
I think it's probably morphed into your DNA to the point where you can't actually recognize your strategy anymore. Maybe it's just first and foremost, though, Timo, you put that background thing that you've got going on there is just putting us to shame. So I have moved my office around to make the background look slightly better after our conversation the other day, Tim, with who was it? I can't remember. But anyway, I did improve, but now I need to go one step further.
I've gone backwards because I've been put in the man cave. So so now I'm just like in the smallest room in my house. But
we can have some. We can zoom in so that I can be intense
look at that
on camera. We can have that. This is like the big data background. We talked about the slides over here. This could be anything. It could be like a cartoon from my website. I said I wanted compelling content that would make people interested in our product, not just marketing.
I love it. It's brilliant, Timo.
We could even try and have some fun here. I don't know if this is going to work. Let's see.
I do. While you're programming that, I also remember you writing. Was it you recorded a video?
We can even do virtual clothes.
Oh, look at that. Hold on then. So what are you wearing then? Are you seriously wearing a suit?
I think that's a very dangerous question to go down.
Yeah, okay, all right, yeah. All right. I'm going to go red now. I did have a question for you, but now
people can ask that on the comments if they're interested.
So if people are interested this is I call it the home TV studio. So on my blog, timoelliott.com, or on my LinkedIn, if you scroll down, you'll see a series of articles on equipment, and there's a YouTube video that gave training and so on.
That's what I was trying to say. You give so much away about how you do this. I remember you in a hotel room. I'm about to set up my studio because you take it with you. Brilliant. I loved it. It's like you really are very good. And I've got two questions for you. So I'll start with the first one and then let Tim. We could talk to you all day. Which social platforms are you on, Timo? Clubhouse is the new big thing. I want to know if you're on that first and foremost. But your pictures on Instagram, I've already told you this, just amaze me because the photos you do on Instagram of Paris. So you're on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. Any others?
So I'm not on club, whatever it is. I'm not cool enough for that. So yes, I'm on pretty much everything. Timo Elliott on almost everything. I'm on TikTok even. But so for work, obviously. So Twitter, I spend a lot of time on Twitter, not because the customers are there. They don't spend much time on Twitter in general, but influencers certainly are. Like the people that my customers will turn to for straightforward advice. The analysts spend a lot of time trying to cut through the marketing and get to the kernel of truth and explain that to their customers. I like to cut out the middleman and just do that for them. So I spend time on Twitter, and then LinkedIn obviously is a great platform where people do spend more time. So I will share articles on LinkedIn as well.
Keith is asking, so Keith is from Zurich. He's like, what is it that you're using to do that? It's amazing. Yeah, I can totally see you, Keith, doing this now. So yeah, he wants to know about all that. You've written a blog there, haven't you, about the whole studio background thing?
whole background blog with lots more details. So yeah, go and take a look. It's some software that allows you to take in a video feed, change backgrounds and things like that. So yes, a lot more detail of how to get it all done.
So just in terms of the LinkedIn and Twitter aspects, Timo, it's really interesting that you're almost on Twitter to influence the influencers. And on LinkedIn, would you say that you're connecting much more with customers directly, or is it influencers as well? Like, how does the audience change for you?
So the Twitter works both ways. So I'm trying to figure out what the influencers are saying too, right? So I'm keeping track of. So for example, we did a big launch event yesterday. So I was very interested in getting some feedback. What do people think? What do they want to know more about? What worked? What didn't work? What are the next steps? Then I don't do as much on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is more a place for me to start. So sharing, writing articles. I write on my blog, TimoElliott.com, but then I will put the same article typically on LinkedIn because a lot of people will find it more easily through LinkedIn these days. So that's where if there's a topic that I think is interesting, I will put it there. Or if I've done a presentation and simply want to share it, or I want to explain how this stuff works, I'll put it there too. So LinkedIn for me is more of the sharing platform. And then the Twitter is the more sort of lively place. And then for actually contacting and talking to customers, one of the nice things about my job is that I do get to interview customers on a regular basis. So I get to ask them directly, tell me about your project. What were you trying to do? What were the problems? How did you handle this that I know other customers have struggled with this aspect of it? How did you handle that? And then I'll write that up and then share it.
Got it.
Nice.
I've got a bit of a question for you though, Timo. So I know, speaking to some partners in the tech space, they really struggle to activate their employees, especially their technical employees. They just don't really see the point. It takes a bit of time to get active on social, not quite sure, what's right for them. Feel it's a bit of a waste of time. Marketing should own it. But you have embraced this from an early stage. What would your advice be to maybe technical folks within like partners that maybe want to dabble but are just not sure about it and just think it's too much effort?
I mean, so there's no magic wand. It's very much about incentives, but I don't think you should force people who aren't interested in sharing to share. Mm-hmm. I don't think that works because you'll just end up with content that is clearly written by somebody who doesn't want to be there. But I think in every organization, there are people that do care about their customers being successful. And I think there's an opportunity to say, well, look, why don't we take what you've learned on this project and share it some more? And the key thing, I think, is to persuade people that they're not giving up their power or their knowledge or their kudos. So many technical roles, for example, people have really interesting, great knowledge, but they suffer from two problems. One is it might be something that they feel like that they've spent a lot of time gathering that knowledge, and that it gives them a certain gives them a value internally and externally, and so they feel like sharing it might dilute that value. So I think very clearly all of the data shows that exactly the opposite is true. If you know something, the more you share it, the more value you're going to get out of it. Thankfully, in this world, I share everything I do because I've just seen that it just turns into bigger benefits. So if you can persuade people of that. The other is they might not necessarily have the skills to do it in a social media world and being sort of articulate, or like how to do it in a way that captures people's attention. Even if there's a kernel of something that's interesting, right, they might need some help in how to communicate that. So that's where marketing can help, by surrounding the interesting people with the marketing people to help them get what's interesting out to an audience. So I think it's less about sort of telling people to do more and more enabling the people that want to share it. So for example, I know one of the things that we do, and I think has worked quite successful, is to get people to write content for people. It's like, instead of trying to force somebody to write a blog, say, look, we're going to take half an hour of your time, an hour of your time, just talk to us. We'll write it all down, and then you double check it, and then we'll publish it. I think that is the kind of approach that gets people started.
Yeah, I think that's amazing.
Well, no, go for it, Sarah.
I was just
Joining
going to
us.
say I interviewed earlier this month actually a couple of techie guys, one that I used to sit next to when I lived in Oslo, from SAP, to try and get to the nub of, you know, what's going on, how did you suddenly switch your light on and start becoming social? And one of the things he said is marketing, you know, they can help us, but please don't tell us how to do it. Let us find the medium that suits us. You know, it could be screen sharing videos, or we just released it today, the interview on our blog, but it was quite interesting really, because I thought, well, actually we can help you do that, but they were like, just leave us alone and just help us, but in our own way. We might not want to write a blog, we might want to do videos. So I just thought that was quite interesting. So
and then there are obviously the platforms for helping employees share links that have been created by marketing. I don't find that very authentic. People have told me it's a good way of getting people into the rhythm, and then eventually they step up and they start doing it more customized and they create their own content. So, okay, I can buy that. But fundamentally, I think people should be really concentrating on what they personally find interesting and sharing that with their customers, rather than trying to get points by sharing as many content as possible. I think that goes back to the AstroTurf. And fundamentally also, I think I sometimes say that marketing is useless.
I'll just leave now then, shall I?
You can imagine how many friends that gets me.
Since you're the founder, you can wear the founder hat, Sarah.
Oh yeah. Oh, I can't go anywhere. Right.
Just because it's, it gets back to that just marketing content. Remember before the pandemic when we used to travel? Let's say you had to choose a hotel. How did you go about choosing a hotel, Tim?
TripAdvisor. Oh, sorry. Just answered.
Well, just some reviews, peer-to-peer recommendations, that's the kind of thing. Right,
because you might go to the hotel website to check some of the factual details, but it's not like you trust the hotel website. They're a bit biased, aren't they? So the same is true of just buying anything these days. You don't really care what the vendor of that product and service has to say. You care about what other people like you care about that product or services. So at one level, marketing, what do they have left to do? Right? If you've got this content factory of these people churning out materials, why not instead go and take what your customers really think about your products and services and amplify that? So less about the content creation and amplifying what you've created, and more about making your customers into heroes, hopefully the happy customers. And if you don't have happy customers for your product, there's limits to what marketing can do.
Sure, and I think you mentioned some really, really interesting points, Timo, because what I would say is that you and a lot of the people that Sarah and I have interviewed are confident people. They've worked it out in social media, probably for themselves, and then they've just been helped by marketing if they can help them. But quite often you're evangelists in your own right, so you would succeed without a marketing team. I think to be able to encourage our listeners and to employees that are not like you, I think the issue is confidence and education. I think the really interesting thing that you've said is, when you're saying interview someone for an hour and then we'll write up a blog post or publish something on LinkedIn and then see how it does, you're giving them the confidence that what they're saying is interesting, and then you're educating them on how they could put it together. Then they see the results and then they start getting in their rhythm. And I think that's a really interesting thing, because you don't need too much help. You've got all the technology and you've obviously built this up over a decade. I suppose marketing teams need to, change their thinking for how to enable their employees en masse, get that confidence and education. That's really, really tough when there's tens of thousands of people.
And there's one thing I'd like to mention is that I do believe that there's new opportunities because of this new virtual world that we're living in that before there really was. So people have always been interested in experts. People want to talk to experts, especially in my industry, technology. It's very complex, right? It's not like we're selling fizzy, sugary liquids where the marketing is the feeling of it. Right, we sell complex carbohydrates that are hard to understand, but you have lots of choices. And so explaining all of that actually becomes part of the product, becomes part of the customer experience. So rather than marketing, we're sort of a feature of helping people be successful with what they bought with the product for in the first place. Now, so expertise is of interest to people. So we work in 30 different industries. We have industry experts. We have product experts. Now, before, there was a choice of those experts could go and visit a customer. So we have people whose job it was to go and visit maybe 2 customers a day. Or we could try and encourage them to write on social media, hey, why can you write that up as a blog? And then we could share it with more people. Now there's also a middle option, which is they could just stay at home and do 10 meetings a day with a customer or a group of customers. So you can actually shift. There's this middle ground of sort of, it's not really social media. It's not really individual customer stuff. Or you could have a retail expert that just does like non-stop one-on-one meetings with your retail customers and prospects. Since everybody is home, it doesn't make any difference anymore, right? So, yeah. And I think that is a disruption to the normal way that organizations have been working that I haven't seen many organizations explore fully yet, because it means working in new ways. Right? Yeah. That digital transformation applies to everybody.
Yeah. Do you know, that reminds me of a story, actually, Timo. And you probably don't remember it, but I'm sure you told me this, that there was a customer in Australia that wanted to speak to somebody. I tell lots of people this, so I really hope it is true, but it's stuck in my mind. There was a customer in Australia at SAP that wanted an analytics expert. And they were like, yeah, okay, we'll get someone to talk to you. But they wanted you. And so I don't know if it was you that told me that story, but someone told me that story. And they didn't want any analytics expert. They wanted to talk to you. And that's the power of influence and experts. And when you build that credibility and knowledge and, people start following you, you might not know it, but then when they're ready, they want to talk to you. And I just think that's me. Tell me that was true.
I don't remember that, but I will happily pretend that is true. And it was absolutely me.
Well,
I think it's the same. We interviewed Rob McCargo from PwC on this, and he often got asked for interviews on AI ahead of the chief executive, ahead of lots of other people in PwC, because he was the one showing up on social media. So since you put the effort in, Timo, I'm not surprised that people have seen your content and want to speak to you because they bought into your personality.
Oh, look, you can't say anything to that. Do you know what, though? You do touch on a point, and I think this as well, Tim. I've always felt, and I thought it was going to happen last year, but I think it's going to happen this year, that redirecting marketing budgets and creating the bland content, but actually supporting their expert's voice on through the content they prefer to create. And there is a massive benefit for them because it helps them, like you say, the more you share, the more you reciprocate, and it just becomes a thing. But I just think if we just read... Yeah, go on.
So you just mentioned something that I care a lot about, which is just a lot of previous people who have been in your sessions have mentioned this, that social media shouldn't come as this afterthought once you've already done all the rest of your marketing. If anything, I should think it's completely the other way around, where I believe that fundamentally one of the nice things about my role is that I get to talk about things with customers. I get their feedback. And then I can find out what works and what doesn't. And then over time, I can constantly iterate, but through engagement with the customers to find what is interesting, what they want to hear more about. So I have a process of iteration, of refining. So at the end of that process, I know that I have something that is interesting. Once I have something interesting, then I can spend time and effort amplifying and trying to get it out to more people. So I think we should ideally, I think we'd love to do the same thing at the marketing level. Instead of your campaigns should start with some expert who said, look, this is really interesting. I've talked to all these customers. I know they're really interested in this. Let's do a marketing campaign about that. Yeah. Invite people to this conversation that we're already having, create a community around it. So really sort of flip the whole marketing machine around to instead of a factory, making it a refinery.
Oh, I love that. Factory to refinery.
I think that's amazing. I mean, that's what we talk about, Sarah, isn't it? Because a lot of the marketing people that we work with, a piece of content lands on their desk and they're told to promote it.
Yes.
Whereas if marketing reach out to all the interesting people in the community and then set up a forum where you're debating or you're creating content and then create the content out of what is the most interesting part in the room, as you said, Timo, that completely flips the interesting part of the content. And it's a shame when obviously content is pushed at marketing by senior people to say, please promote this, or this is really important to me, because marketing are not given the I suppose the right opportunity. They might not have bought into the content personally.
Well, and then again, in my industry, we start with, hey, here's this new product. And then people say, oh, well, how do we make our product interesting? Okay, how do we, what is it about this product that people might be interested in? But really, so I try and do exactly the opposite. So not exactly the opposite, but just if I'm given an audience, I'm going to think, like, what is that audience likely to be most interested in at this particular moment? Right? In an ideal world, what would I talk about if I didn't have any constraints? I'll start there. Now, is there a way that I can talk about what we sell as part of what they're already interested in? And thankfully, I work for a large organization, and we're selling data and digital transformation, which is pretty much in everything we do these days anyway. So it's not hard for me to bring in some aspect of what we do to what people are interested in. And I think, though, the net result is much easier than trying to push your product pitch uphill.
I love that. Keith just said, can you just social this?
Yeah. Exactly.
Can you just put that out?
No, we can't do that.
No. But I love that, employee generated content, campaigns morphing. Let's have a refinery instead of a factory. To the point, they created that product for some reason. It was to solve an issue. I think we kind of lose along the way what that issue was about, and maybe we should start talking about that as a way as a conversation. So I think
again, just I have to remind people that the vast majority of your marketing is not done by marketing. Yeah. Right? If marketing means anything, it's about creating the perception of your products and services in the customer's mind. Most of that is done by your product and service and the people they talk to and the salespeople they hate, and the customer support calls and the bugs that aren't fixed and all that. So all of that adds up to a lot more of their image of your organization than the marketing. So I think it's important to marketing to take a step back and look at the big picture of, okay, customer experience, and what can we do to improve that customer experience? How do we enable the rest of the organization to change the perception of our products and services in the most optimal way?
I'm going to give you an example, actually. One of our customers, they're using social listening. Now, lots of companies are doing social listening, but they're doing it in a way that they were on the, can you just social this, for a long time. But now they're seeing where the conversations are happening. So they're getting their experts in those conversations on platforms like Reddit. And, they didn't even know those conversations were happening on there, but 80% of them are. So now they're moving their experts into those conversations. And that is cool. That's what marketing should be doing, facilitating. And I could get so I could get you.
And then the credibility is another important aspect we haven't really touched on. Is that I think, especially in this world, I think credibility is so important, that people believe what you're saying, that they don't discount it because you're just marketing. So too many people think of marketing and social as like lots of adjectives, simple, connected, integrated, just endless phrases that add up to marketing schmumble. Just like, get to the point, tell people what they're interested in, talk to people as if they were, your sister-in-law who's running a big ERP product. That's, you talk to that person, you'd be honest about you say, oh, well, for you, these are the advantages of the product. This is the part you might struggle with. You should do that for everybody. Yeah,
I guess what's interesting is that anyone listening to this would probably say, yeah, of course, that makes perfect sense. But as a marketing department, I guess it's about, control and being able to empower and trust, tens of thousands of people. Basically, marketing content, you've got a message that you want people to amplify, but it's more authentic if they all do it themselves. But obviously you give away control. What you gain is trust and the credibility. But this is the complete evolution of marketing, isn't it, over the forthcoming years?
I mean, one question I like to ask people is, marketing people, is, do you feel like you succeed because of your KPIs or despite your KPIs?
Oh, that's good, isn't it?
So, yeah.
How do they generally answer?
I'll let you guess.
Yeah.
Keith's asked a question about your whole refining, but can you name a company that you would say they do it really well? They're more less of the shouty and more of the refinery? Do you think
Apart
of
from
No, I
SAP.
couldn't call out. It's more. There are people and bits of companies that clearly do it well. I don't think there's any one organization that I could say, yes, this is.
Yeah.
I mean, I think. Well, yes, at one level I would. I say the entire new generation of more startup, any technology company that has grown quickly over the last 5 years, 10 years maybe, basically does marketing completely different way. They're product and customer experience led. They use that to create a community of like-minded people, and then they expand that community to sell to their new customers and prospects. I mean, that's pretty much the template for any organization that is created now or recently. And it's more just a question of the rest of us getting on board that same model, given that we're coming from a different place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think to answer Keith's question another way as well is if companies want to create perception around a topic, but they don't have expertise in that area, it forces them to ask externally and to develop that community to try and generate some interesting content because they don't have the internal messages that they can actually push out. So sometimes it's because of the situation that marketers are in that they actually create that community and create research to generate interest, which I think is a really good outcome. But it's become it's almost because of what they don't have, rather than like having too much, then you've got to push out the messages that are being fed to you. So sometimes I think it happens organically that way.
And I think this is a role of marketing. Some people say, well, how do you succeed in marketing? I say the same thing, is really understand the customers. You don't have an opinion as a marketer. Your customers have opinions. All you'll do is relaying them to the rest of the organization. So, the product people care about the product, salespeople care about the sales, executives care about the top and bottom line. Marketing, I think, should be the people that care about the customer experience overall and should understand it better than everybody else. Now, the structure of many organizations is not that. Marketing people are the ones that send out the emails or, tell people off for using the logo wrong. It's the other thing I ask people. It's like, are you more likely to get in trouble for creating a boring piece of content that nobody looks at, or using the logo wrong in something that's interesting? You can guess the answer to that one, too.
Yeah.
So again, it sort of gets back to incentives and the role of marketing. And yes, I'm just a fundamental, you can tell I'm passionate about customers. If you care about customers and you care about what customers care about, you can't go wrong. I'm relatively cynical about marketing and sales and companies because my customers are relatively cynical about marketing and sales and so on. So I'm really just trying to mirror that reality.
And for all the marketers watching this, I'm a marketing person too and feeling thoroughly bruised. But I have to say, Timo, you're absolutely right. And I think I had my epiphany when I started my own business and realized the value in having sales conversations and the impact that can have on marketing. Because a lot of marketers are operating in that, like, their own brick office or whatever. But actually, the moment you start listening to customers, I have a bit of an alert going off in my head. When I'm having a conversation, I'm like, that's a blog post, that's an ebook, do you know what I mean? I'm thinking like a marketer, but I'm speaking to customers because I'm just interested in what they've got to say. And I think that has made me realize the value of customer insights and conversations on creating content that flies. So
and Tim, you had a question. We keep talking over you. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I sorry. I'll put myself on mute. There you go.
No. I completely no. I think it's a very good point. And what I was thinking about is because all three of us have the ability to speak direct to customers and to think up the content. That's really great. And on this particular interview series, I always think about what about the people that don't necessarily have that access to the customers or the employees that are looking to be inspired and I guess who may not have your expertise, Timo, or may not have your access to all of the content. So I think the advice which you've given, which I've really taken on board, is kind of listen to the people who are experts in the industry to find the interesting content, and then to put what you're passionate about into that content, and that magical formula anybody can find, right?
Yeah, no, it sounds great to me. I mean, and don't get me wrong about marketing. I mean, I'm passionate about marketing. I believe very strongly that marketing is an incredibly important function. It's just that, again, I take a sort of very big picture view of marketing and really try and always bring it back to what I think is the core before we try and rebuild what we're doing on top of it. And again, I get frightened by some of the people that concentrate on the systems, because the systems can lead to you can't. I mean, so one thing, I'm an evangelist, right? So ultimately, my job is to change a little needle in people's heads. So before people have talked to me, they have a certain needle in their head. They're like, this is what I think about this vendor. After I've talked to them, hopefully I've like moved that needle a little bit, so they now think that we're more interesting and useful and innovative, and they're more likely to pay attention to us in the future. But measuring that movement on a dial, I don't know how to do that. It's certainly not in sort of number of clicks or likes or how many people turned up to the pitch. I mean, those things might correlate, but they might not. And so I'm a big believer in the power of qualitative feedback, not just hard numbers, because I think hard numbers can actually be a bit soft when it comes to reality.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think we're going to have to wrap up soon. We could, as Sarah said, we could talk all day about this, but I've definitely taken away, just the finding interesting content, putting your passion in, but also not diluting the value of who you are by sharing online. I think that's changed over the years. It's definitely a sort of an American attitude that I learned years back, to just spill all of your knowledge out there and just like create interesting content, and more stuff will come back.
Right. There's one thing I say to people is, like, imagine your next job interview. And I ask you, okay, show me that you can do your job and that you can help the greater community of customers be successful. I can just say, Google me, right? So it's much easier for people to. I mean, I think that is the question that people will get in their next job interview. Just like right now, I think every person should get a question saying, how did you rethink the way you worked because the world changed? Were you one of the people that led change in your organization, that thought about how we could use this horrible situation to do something different and better? Or were you one of the people that sat there and waited for somebody to tell you what to do? Right? If you're one of those first people, you're hopefully going to have a great career.
Yeah, brilliant. Oh, I've got so many. I don't know what to call these, but I've got so many Timo-isms written down. I could almost write. I would have to go back over this and write them all up in some kind of content.
I feel like Timo is a cooler name than Tim. Someone should have just put an O at the end of my name. Yeah.
Brilliant. Oh, Timo, you absolutely. I could listen to you forever. Thank you so much. Really good.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure. As you can tell, I really care about this stuff. So I was trying to put a link in. But it's timoelliott.com if people want to see the blog posts or cartoons. I got cartoons on marketing, innovation, analytics. Really go there in terms of like creating content that's a little bit different. Yeah. That is, because sometimes just being different is enough. I mean, I've talked about analytics for 30 years. I could probably use some of the same presentations I used 30 years ago. But just coming up with something that's a little bit different, that is ways of getting the communication out that people pay attention to. That's something that we also could have talked about for half an hour. But anyway, go to my blog if you're interested in finding out anything about what we've talked about, or reach out to me directly. I'd be happy to.
Oh, fantastic. And also, I noticed that one of your tweets, you said that your daughter pointed out how well your analytics were on some videos than others. So I guess if we want to influence you, we need to try and persuade her to sort of help you encourage content on different topics, because it seems like she gives you the KPIs, right, rather than marketing.
Well, so my measurement system is how much her eyes roll.
Exactly. Everyone has a measurement system. That's yours, not the marketing KPIs.
That's a dad's job, though, isn't it? That's what you're supposed to do.
There's one video I did that was really quite on telling customer stories, but I took it down because she was so embarrassed on my behalf.
Now we want to see it, Timo.
Yeah. Well, fantastic.
Maybe I'll send you a secret link.
Yeah, do. Well, I hope that was interesting to everyone for watching. We certainly found it really thoroughly enjoyable chat, and very, very interesting, very, very different perspective from all of our other people that we've interviewed, and really valuable. So thank you very much, Timo. If anyone wants to find more resources, then you can visit the Tribal Impact website or Analytica website at our resources section. And we look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks with our next guest.
Yeah. Cheers, Timo. Take care now.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Timo.